Good space time, y'all. In this episode of the Citizen Cosmos podcast, I spoke with Bojan from Liquity, an Ethereum-based borrowing protocol managed by smart contracts. We discussed the value of traditional education in Web3, freelancing, the catalyst for mass adoption, and the points of failure in projects. We also spoke about people as currency, future of stablecoins, the security of multisigs, and the structure of Liquity versus other similar platforms.
I think that DeFi itself is not sufficiently interesting for the common person. Trusted financial systems actually help via their incompetence to push non-trustless financial systems. Why are you building this? What problem is it solving? Who needs this? And if you can't answer that, then you shouldn't build a Web3 product. They are providing DeFi and wider with reliable price sources, but then they have, I think, multi-sig 4 of 9, which can crash and burn all of DeFi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Cosmos podcast. Today, I have with me a guest from Liquity, an Ethereum project, Bojan, the biz dev. Hi, head of operations, I should say as well.
Hey, Serge. Yeah, no worries. We're a small team and we do a lot of different stuff.
How are you, man? First of all.
Very good. Thank you. Business as usual, quite busy with the recent news and announcements and turmoil in Ethereum especially. But good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm good. It's nice. It's perfect time. And I was going to ask you about the turmoil as well. For me, it's perfect. It's just the start of the second half of the day, so it's good. Before we get into all the turmoils of Ethereum and all the pains, of whatever it is there, because there is a lot, of course, in crypto.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy day any day. I'm going to ask you to do a small intro for yourself. Like, tell us everything you think we should know about you. What are you currently working on specifically? And anything else you would like to add for introduction about yourself?
Cool, yeah. As you already said, my name is Bojan. I'm based in the south of Europe, in Macedonia more precisely. And I am a freelancer since over 10 years by now. So I did all kinds of jobs. For the last almost 3 years, I'm with Liquity, which is a borrowing protocol on Ethereum. And before that, I did all kinds of VC and startup related gigs. Really love this type of work. Freelancing, being independent, and really suits my needs. So would you like to hear anything else from my side?
You know what? Since you already said it, interesting topic. You said you're a freelancer for 10 years. I've quit. I'm trying to think. I think it was 7-8 years ago, like corporate work. I was around 30 at the time. And I'm curious, like a person like yourself, you're a biz dev, which is, in my opinion, one of the most busiest positions, I would say. Maybe not demanding in terms of physical work, right? In terms of like, you don't have to carry heavy things, but it's a demanding position. And I'm curious, like you said that it's been 10 years for you now, I have, of course, here some questions about your past work as well, about the VC experience, but in a bit. But before that, like, I'm interested. A lot of people today, especially with all the financial situation around the world, right? And trying to look for alternatives ways of earning money. A lot of them turn to Web3, but again, freelancing doesn't necessarily correlate with Web3. How has it been for you, the journey of 10 years of being a freelancer? And is it better in Web3 being a freelancer than in Web2, or is it the same? Is there no differences? Are there?
In terms of Web3 versus Web2, I think there is no difference. People value good work, and that's the same for Web3 and Web2. How I started is quite funny because I was in not such a good financial position, and I somehow stumbled over Upwork, which is probably the biggest freelancing website, and I just applied to some gig. It was 2 hours testing of a mobile app for my country. So I'm from Slovenia originally, so they needed someone local. I applied, I got hired, I tested an app for 2 hours, and I got paid. I remember that still, $22 for that, which was at that time probably 4 times my hourly rate. So that's also inflation for you there. So I thought, that thing actually works. And I started applying. I started out with customer support jobs, various research jobs, and then just expanded on that. So because I was in my school years interested in all kinds of things, just not in finishing school, I don't have a university degree. So I had to improvise and I had to find my way around and how to make money, but everything worked out well in the end.
Interesting. You mentioned uni degree, and I can really relate to that. I'm the same. The only thing I was interested in school was not being there. I wasn't actually interested in finishing it. So that's a good one. I'm curious. There's another topic that is kind of, a lot of people point the finger at Web3 as for a lot of the time you hear this stigma, and I'm curious as to what your opinion on that. The people who say that Web3 isn't ready, that it's not, it's just a big speculation, and, it's all a scam, they say one of the reasons so that is because, well, the people who build Web3 are not educated, not good enough educated, not da-da-da, da-da-da. And here is a question, but isn't it kind of like a double stick thing? Because, I mean, a person who goes, and again, this is like a devil's advocate kind of thing to say, but what's your opinion? Who goes and does an education degree in finances, right, or in economics, isn't that kind of already a problem for them? Because if they have that information to go into Web3, they already go with some prepositions and things that they wouldn't have if they didn't do the degree. So in a sense, I'm trying to say maybe not having that and not being exposed to that system, especially, right, because that's what university gives you the most, is that systematic thinking. Is that a good or a bad thing in Web3? And should everybody who works in Web3 go and do, economic degrees, or that's not necessarily in your opinion?
I think the most important thing to start working in any industry is being interested in that industry. So you have to have a passion for that. I don't think that we attract uneducated people or anything of that sort, or traditionally not educated with not having degrees, etc. I think it attracts a certain type of person. Indeed, either they are kind of libertarian, either they had some kind of liking or bad experience with the financial system, or live in an oppressive country. Either they worked in Web2 and saw some innovative approaches and which couldn't be done in Web2 or in traditional finance. And there are dozens of other reasons and examples why would someone choose Web3 over other industries. In my experience, when meeting people at events or conferences, they are very approachable, very nice, very good people. I get along with the vast majority of them. So I haven't had any bad personal experiences. And I think more and more people will join. I mean, you see that people from Google or from the FANG companies are moving over into crypto. Some of them maybe have quick money wishes or plans. Others are genuine. There will be more and more people coming to the space. And if I revert back a bit to the freelancing question, because I haven't fully answered your question there, what I do think about often is, especially in global south country or third world countries, it's really very easy to get a freelance job on your computer. You can do very basic jobs like data entry or customer support and earn probably 3-4 times what you would earn in that country, or even more. But I still see such a huge migration of young people from, for example, south of Europe into Germany, into Switzerland, into whatever, while they could live, in my opinion, better life at home, working on a computer.
I personally based in, you could say South Europe. I mean, it's an island, but it's a Portuguese island. And not even that, I see a lot of young people moving to France and Germany for physical jobs. And it's sometimes not a disappointment. I don't want to say that word because it's not the right word, but like, it's bright people, bright minds, bright guys, girls that are doing what they're used to do for many years, other people. And the thing is that they are a bit wary in discovering. And this is, I think, again, I'm talking about adoption or usage, right? And I noticed, though, that people, it's very hard for me. For example, I've been based here for two something years. And especially, this is kind of correlates with the growth of the project. Our own project, I mean, and at the time, we've been struggling to get local guys and girls to work for us because they prefer something physical and that they can touch with their hands.
Yeah, I think it's also a question of a certain blueprint as to how you should work or where one can get money. I guess from South America, everyone wants to go to the States. From Africa, everyone wants to go to Europe. Here in the Balkans, it's mostly Germany, and they don't even allow the thought to penetrate that they can make money at home. Everyone is a scammer and, I don't know, politically affiliated if you drives a good car or something. So it's a bit of a mind thing as well, and we should try to change that, I think. Also or mainly for the benefit of the countries.
Absolutely. And there is a very good couple of points I think you mentioned there, that it reminds me of that experiment, where they put 5 monkeys in a cage and put the ladder with the bananas. Have you heard about it?
I don't think so. Can you tell me?
So the scientists put, I don't remember who it's done by, I don't remember what year it's done, but the idea is that you have a ladder with bananas and 5 monkeys, and every time monkey goes up, the ladder to get the bananas, the other monkeys get sprayed with really cold water. So essentially, every time a monkey goes up, the other monkeys beat up the monkey and don't let him go up the ladder. And then the scientists change one of the monkeys, which of course straight away goes up for the bananas, but of course, he gets beaten up, and then he gets used to doing that. And then they change one by one the other monkeys to the point of where the original monkeys are changed, and the 5 new monkeys have never been punished with cold water, yet because everybody was doing it, they are also doing that, and they're still beating up the other monkeys that are trying to climb up the ladder. And we're talking about, people getting used to do what other people been doing for years, not really understanding why. And this is like kind of bringing me, I guess, to more your favorite topic, and I guess one of my favorite topics, decentralized finance, right? And why are we still stuck in... But you know what? Let me go completely different way. Something for you that is... I'm gonna go straight to the harsh question.
Okay.
Why peg to the US dollar? Why are we still in cryptocurrency, in the Web3 world, where our goal is to build, one of our goals, I guess, is to build different alternative financial system, and not just an alternative financial system, a lot more. I'm not going to be loud right now, but I think we all understand that, what I'm talking about at least. Why are we still pegging to fiat currencies? What is the idea behind that? What's the reason?
Well, we are mostly pegging to the US dollar because that is the global reserve currency, and that is what people are used to value things in, or the fiat currency they most aspire or desire. We saw experiments with pegging to nothing with Reflexer Finance and their RAI coin, and we saw experiments with pegging to other currencies, and they just lack traction. People are used to the dollar, people want the dollar, people understand things in the dollar, and for the time being, it's going to be the dollar. That's pretty much it, in my opinion.
Let me play a little bit devil's advocate. Since we just spoke about was herd mentality, and people want the US dollar, but does that mean that that's the solution? I mean, let me ask you your opinion. What, in your opinion, gives value to a currency at all, not just to the US dollar, but what would your personal interpretation be? Not a book interpretation, but what does Bojan? How do you see it? Well, what gives any currency value?
I mean, that's a bit of a monetary theory question, something that I'm not too strong in. I think a certain degree is just the belief in it, but the other thing is adoption. So if it can be easily used as a unit of exchange, where and how easily, but also some kind of backing. I mean, we don't have a gold standard or anything really backing the dollar, at least anymore, but there is the backing of the US government, the US military, the US financial complex, and all of that together still make USD the strongest offering.
Do you think that things that you said, like the US government, the military, can be replaced in the digital form, like infrastructure, I don't know, smart contracts, whatever?
If there is a critical mass reached, then yes. But that is...
Where is the point of that critical mass? Sorry to interrupt you.
I don't know. But we are still far from it, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know where's the critical mass. I guess we need to see a lot of financial turmoil, a lot more than we saw now. I mean, there are different currents pulling at the monetary system. Not only crypto, there is the BRICS countries, which supposedly want to do a commodity-backed currency. I don't know if that's true, but there are some papers floating around. There are probably others which want to do something, I don't know, gold-backed, or cryptos which want to do something with gold. But so far, that is still far from challenging the dollar status. And it won't be easy to execute. I mean, the US won't just stand by and get steamrolled.
In all honesty, I'm not sure that's something that, I mean, as much as that's one of my dreams, I'm going to be honest, but I don't think it's possible within the next. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not, but let me, you mentioned adoption several times. And recently, I was using, like everybody, I guess, Journey and ChatGPT and I don't know, not everybody, but I guess a lot of people have went to use it, and I'm one of them also. And I noticed one thing. We have a designer on the team, and shout out to her if she's listening. And she was using Journey, and I noticed, because she's a person not from the computer world, she's an artist, like a real artist. In one day, or not one day, but 1 hour, I think she started using prompts, but the command prompts. And my first thought was like, oh, so, NFTs did half of the adoption for crypto, which wasn't expected. And now AI is doing the adoption for coding. Also, not expected, but, people using these prompts are technically sending, a query to a database, which basically they doing some coding, which before they didn't even think about it. What do you think is what's going to give DeFi, and I'm not talking adoption in the Web3 world, I'm talking adoption outside of the Web3 world. Or do we need adoption in the first place for DeFi, or as it is today at least?
That is a very good question. And I think that DeFi itself is not sufficiently interesting for the common person, or whatever you want to call it. In the same way that stocks and ETFs, etc., are not too interesting for the common person. I don't know how the percentage of people investing is in the US, but I saw just recently some data for Europe. And for example, Slovenia was 22% for traditional finance. So 22%, just 1 in 5 invest in any stocks or bonds or anything. Bulgaria even less. Cyprus, 10%. There were some of Switzerland and some of Sweden's with 40-50%. But this is kind of the outlier for Europe. So DeFi, I don't know if it will bring adoption. Maybe working as a bank, as a savings account, and you can get 3%. You very easily onboard with your wallet. So onboarding and account abstraction will be very important for adoption. Security will be very important for adoption. But then, as you rightfully said, NFTs did a huge favor to crypto, or also to DeFi. Even though I personally have no affinity for it, I just don't feel any need to do anything with NFTs. I don't know why, even though I like pretty things, I guess, but not NFTs. But when this will happen, you gave great examples of Midjourney and ChatGPT. I think it will happen when the things that people can achieve with them are so mind-blowing, they just can't resist. Similar like with the mobile phone. All of a sudden you could phone your mom from anywhere. You could go on the web browser and look things up and receive emails and send messages on Telegram. So when things become so mind-blowingly good and such an improvement and so easy to do, then a bigger mass adoption will happen.
For sure. But you mentioned an interesting thing. You said you started comparing numbers from the Balkans and primarily from the Balkans in investing in traditional instruments. And, one of the first things that springs to mind, one of the reasons for it is because in the US, the numbers are higher because, the system helps you to trust itself more, whether in Eastern Europe, I spent some time in the Balkans as well, and in Eastern Europe as well, of course, people don't trust the system. That's why they don't invest in traditional instruments. And the question is, can a trustless instrument, and this is going to be hilarious, but here's the question, this is the paradox, can a trustless, project like Liquity help people to establish trust in something that they should have had originally in trusted financial systems?
Yes, I actually do think that is the case and that is happening. And trusted financial systems actually help via their incompetence to push non-trustless financial systems. And the same research I mentioned earlier with TradFi, it actually checked for TradFi and crypto adoption. And I think for Croatia, it was very similar. Crypto and TradFi around 16-17%. I remember Cyprus was even higher crypto adoption than TradFi. So it's already happening, and it will just accelerate from here, I think. Especially now with all the banks and centralized exchanges blowing up, etc., that people will wake up to the importance of resilient and decentralized applications and use cases.
It's been a while since we've been talking about with several various guests on the podcast that the next Circle or Binance or whoever is gonna go down is gonna be probably the biggest push for the next adoption leg of bridges between the interchain, which will help, of course, to hopefully to transfer liquidity in a trustless manner between blockchains without multi-sigs and because a lot of the bridges are like that. But regardless of that, though, security. Maybe a bit later, I have a question for something that you mentioned that I didn't ask you. You mentioned about 10 minutes ago, maybe 15 minutes ago, the word passion. And this is another big topic that we always discuss. And with the way that liquidity is shaped, right, where the smart contracts are kind of in charge, right, of what's going on. Why? What made you guys as a team, at least what is your personal passion for working for such a project? Because, again, I'm being devil's advocate, but I want to ask you in that way specifically, why aren't you afraid? Like a lot of the people out there that are saying, oh my God, we do that and we're going to get, I don't know, like we cannot build tools like that. This is going to create a universe with murderers and killers because they don't exist now, right? But so... what is the passion of the team behind Liquidity and your personal passion for trying to decentralize something, yet at the same time kind of understanding that, that responsibility, you said yourself, the world isn't, the way that DeFi is today might not need the adoption. So, I mean, why? Okay, I'm just going to shut up and ask why. So,
yeah, I think I will answer that by explaining why Liquidity did what it did, because it's pretty much aligns with my moral or passion or whatever you want to call it. So short intro on Liquidity, if some of the guys or some of the viewers don't know it, Liquidity is a borrowing protocol, not a lending protocol, but a borrowing protocol which launched 2 years ago on mainnet. It is very similar to MakerDAO. You deposit collateral, you mint a stable coin. MakerDAO was actually the inspiration for our founders, but also the motivation to build something better, because they saw that they can and did improve on the MakerDAO concept. And I did watch Stablecoin pod you did a couple of months ago, and there were a lot of MakerDAO fans, so I would be interested to hear what they think about Liquidity, if they know it at all. Anyway, Liquidity is a borrowing protocol. It is fully decentralized, fully immutable. When we launched the contracts 2 years ago, we relinquished any control about it, over it. No one can change it. No one can influence it. There is no governance. There is no DAO. Everything is governed algorithmically, not algorithmically as in the case of Terra, but as in governed by code and nothing else. Liquidity issues a stablecoin which is called LUSD, and it is over collateralized. And now I can come to the topic of improving on Maker. Liquidity is the most, as I mentioned already, decentralized protocols, also because we do not run any front ends ourselves, not only because of the mutability, etc. So the most decentralized protocol, the most capital efficient protocol, and the cheapest protocol to borrow again, though some people will be challenging that. So why this most capital efficient? Because while Maker offers a loan to value of 75%, Liquidity offers 91%. You deposit 10K of ETH, you can borrow 9K of LUSD. So doing that probably is not smart because it can easily get liquidated. And it is also the cheapest way to borrow. So there is no interest rate, but there is a fee which is almost always 0.5%. So you pay 0.5% when taking out a loan and never anything again. Why we decided to build something like that? Because I think we wanted to build something in the spirit of cryptography and Ethereum, how it is supposed to be done or how it is ideally done, meaning in line with the crypto ethos, so to say. So decentralized, immutable, governed by code, very resilient, and just, I don't know, in line with that ethos that all of us in DeFi are striving towards, but not many can achieve. And that is also in line with what I like and what I'm passionate about. And that's why I'm happy that I'm a team member here in Liquity.
I actually stumbled upon Liquity about 1.5, maybe, roughly about 2.5 years ago, because I was searching with some colleagues of mine for projects that are like that are that have the smart contracts independent. Well, independent is a loud word, but as much as we can say that, and it's interesting because in Ethereum, the conversation of in your opinion, should a smart contract have the fees and not the creator? I mean, should the money technically go back to the smart contract, the gas that it wastes, and to the smart contract itself, and then let the smart contract in the future decide what it wants to do with the money?
I mean, if you build something good, you should be paid for it. I don't know if that is via fees or via some kind of token you build on top, release on top. So I see nothing wrong with getting something out of your work. I mean, that's a case for everything. How that should be done is really up to the builder, to the founder, of course.
You mentioned a token on top, and correct me if I'm wrong. In Liquity protocol, the rewards are paid out in Ethereum, right?
Yeah. So there is a secondary token apart from the stablecoin, which is called LQTY, and we call it a revenue share token because there's no governance. Usually you call that token a governance token. And that token, if it is staked, will receive 100% of the revenue, of the protocol revenue. There are two sources of revenue in Liquity. One is the aforementioned borrowing fee, but people can also redeem or swap their LUSD against ETH. That is actually a peg maintenance mechanism. Yeah, that's the other source of revenue. And the revenue is a stablecoin, so LUSD, and ETH when people redeem. So that is what has been recently called real yield.
I'm gonna go again devil's advocate because this is a topic that, well, in my opinion, very important, and I think not enough people are paying attention to it, but not about me, right? So we had this stream with the Liquid Stake in a debate when we had, this was, I think, a little bit before Liquid Staking started to be popular. I think it was Cosmos focused, not Ethereum focused. This was when Liquid Staking about maybe a bit more. It was still like building up, and Lido, of course, was there actually, of course, but apart from that, it was all Cosmos projects. And one of the questions that I had for the four speakers and that I want to ask you is, what do you think about DeFi in general paying rewards out of inflation? Isn't that kind of like hitting yourself in the head with a hammer or something like that? Or no? Or is that me being extreme?
It's just the most convenient way of doing it, I guess. Every project needs liquidity, needs adoption. You just print some money and that's the easiest way to do it. It's what started DeFi somewhere with Compound. There was a good improvement on that via buying POL, which was introduced by Olympus DAO. And Liquity, the team behind Liquity, actually made another improvement on that with chicken bonds. But that's a totally different topic. And I don't know if we want to go into that because it's rather complicated.
We can be if you want.
Okay. So
it's up to you.
I think that it's okay and cool to distribute your tokens and kind of inflate it to a certain degree if it within certain terms, and if with time you are actually building towards generating real yield, sustainable yield, and you just kind of use those tokens to kickstart things. That's a thing cool from my perspective.
What are the other ways the protocol can generate real yield today, apart from fees or apart from, having, I don't know, DeFi tactics on other projects? But then again, they would have to avoid projects if they are after real yield, right? Then they would have to use projects that generate fees, which aren't that many, right? So are there really any other ways to generate real yield apart from, selling goods, physical goods, and fees in Web3?
I think that
Maybe land, Decentraland, sorry to interrupt.
I think there's nothing wrong with fees per se. You pay a fee to a bank to manage your account, or to your fund to manage your finances, whatever. So fees are fine in my opinion. But first and foremost, there should be a product market fit. There should be a reason for someone to use your product and for you to build that product. That's kind of the usual VC question. Why are you building this? What problem is it solving? Who needs this? And if you can't answer that, then you shouldn't build a Web3 product. You should think about how the product can sustain them itself via some type of revenue. And if that math doesn't work out, then maybe you need to explore things a bit further and deeper.
Considering your VC experience, here's a question for you. What's the product market fit for Liquity? Is it a decentralized? Well, let me divide that. Is it a stable coin, or is it a project that where the code is low, where smart contracts kind of rule, and there is no that? Who is it aiming at? Who is the prime audience? People who want to use stable coins, or people who want to use something which is decentralized to the extent that it can be, of course.
Even though that we received a lot of attention recently, especially recently, because of certain events like Paxos not being allowed to mint BUSD anymore, and more recently the USDC and Co DPEG, even though we received that because of our stablecoin LUSD. First and foremost, we did not want to build a stablecoin. We wanted to build the best borrowing protocol on Ethereum or in DeFi. And that was the motivation, and that was the goal, and that is what we succeeded in, I think. But the stablecoin is just a side product, so to say. If I maybe downplay it a little bit, but that's not fair to the token itself. But we wanted to build first and foremost a borrowing protocol where people bullish on ETH, because only vanilla ETH can be collateral in Liquity. Didn't mention that yet, I think. So where people bullish on ETH can continue holding their ETH, so continue being exposed to the upside while getting some liquidity on the side, either to buy something, to pay for expenses. What I like to see most is people not yield farming, even though we all do it, but kind of using the stablecoin for real world purchases, either to pay your expenses, to buy a car, to buy a house. All of that we had with our users. So that's what I hope to see more in the future, and that's what I like to see the most.
Do you think that, in terms of all the regulatory crap that the European the financial regulators like to get involved in, and of course their primary target to some extent after Bitcoin and Ethereum is stable coins, right? Oh my God, they're printing stable coins. Oh my God, what are we going to do? So, and I understand why, because like you mentioned yourself, right? If you have somebody that everybody trusts, like the US dollar, but without all the crap in it, of course, people are going to use that and not the real US dollar. But with that in mind, do you think, and what you said before, with people actually using LUSD for a purpose, do you think those two things will not contradict each other with the recent, all the bureaucracy that's going on in financial regulator world?
I think we are getting close to some kind of inflection point. It's easy to see if you follow the industry. And yeah, there is a lot of crap shoveling going on both sides of the Atlantic. I hope, because financing crypto is a very lucrative business. I hope that the decision makers kind of think more of their own pockets, what kind of money they can make with crypto, than kind of what damage it can done to their current revenue streams. I don't know if that makes sense. I think that the decision makers in the Western world are, plainly said, very old people, and they have a certain mindset which can't be changed. And I hope that with time, as new people come into position, I know that this should be beneficial for crypto, that also the regulatory aspects won't be so damaging and won't be so inhibiting. But it's getting really tight, really, really hot. So I don't know what will happen. I just hope that no really stupid decisions will be made.
Well, I think we should expect stupid decisions to be made, right? I mean, it's normal. Let's get used to it.
Yeah.
But it's good. The more crop they're putting from one place to another using the shovels or crop shoveling, right? I think the more, you said yourself, the more adoption that gives our world.
Yeah, and I guess adoption gives also leverage to this use case. And if the masses kind of rise up and demand some kind of different paying system, so of course they're trying to counter that with CBDCs. That much power to crypto if we have more adoption.
I noticed over the last, when was I built? About 10 years ago or something like that. Of course, I didn't understand straight away what I was doing. It took me 3 years, I think, to read the Bitcoin white paper. But like I noticed over the course of those 10 or 11 years or so that if I want to talk to somebody, especially, doesn't matter what age really, and try to explain what is this world needed for, then the best way to do it is not to talk about blockchain, but to explain to a person how the financial system works. And then people are in shock usually. They're like, their eyes go really like, what? No, that can't be true. And they start to Google things and they're like, whoa, it is true. And they're like, but they believe Google. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. You also mentioned, by the way, about the time. And I don't know if you know, there is those, well, of course, you know, Deutsche Bank, you've heard of them. And they do those, I think it's them, if I'm not mistaken. They do those reports every now and again and on big macro topics. And one of them was actually what you mentioned before, that about who are the decision makers. And they were saying that this decade, especially the years between some like 25 to 28, are very interesting because it's the first time in history, well, not the first time, but this time in history, it's where the shift in decision making, if you take all of the voting power of the world, is going to shift from one generation to the next generation. And it's going to be roughly between the 25 and 2028, where this will happen. Of course, this is accounting all of the world population as one big voting power. And it's interesting to see, do you think that we will see more places like, I mean, I don't know what to think of it, and I don't know if people are going to hate me for saying that, but like, El Salvador and other crazy decisions like that. I mean, yeah, with whatever people make out of that.
Depends on how that goes for El Salvador. I heard the adoption was pretty bad in terms of El Salvadorians, Bitcoin adoption, which I can't understand because it has been kind of forced upon them. And I like Bukele, from what I can see, his approach and his stance and his mindset. I think, especially now with what the IMF, or not who was responsible, did to Russia with seizing their funds, a lot of global south countries start thinking about, should I be keeping my monies with the West or rather not? And I think they come to the conclusion that rather not is the better way to go. And that's why you see more and more countries applying to BRICS, be it Egypt, be it Saudi Arabia, be it Iran, all of those very populous countries with very good natural resources and young population, which will be the hard currencies in the future, I think. Population, demographics, natural resources. I actually forgot what was the question, but more adoption of Bitcoin in countries. So yes, more of that in the future, but slowly and then suddenly, I think.
I think there was no real question. I think it was just more like a reflection of some thoughts. But it was just us talking about what will drive that, if anything will drive that. I have like quite a few more questions about USD, but one thing I would like to ask you, which is again a bit of interesting topic, unusual topic for sure. When this is the last question in that direction for sure. In terms of Liquity and the team behind Liquity, the team is still there and the team still communicates. I mean, anybody can go on the website, go to the About Us page, have a look at that. And even if it's not there, it's not that difficult to follow the team. And my question is this, again, considering all of the, tornado case and everything else that sometimes happens very suddenly and very unexpectedly and very stupidly, I should say, right? As well, that should be a very important word to add. Aren't the Liquity team is the Liquity team worried that they could be the backdoor or the kill switch in any way to the success of Liquity? And of course, this brings to the bigger way of, can this be the same for every decentralized projects? Will the team always be a failure point for decentralized projects?
Definitely, it's an easy and it's a big attack factor for everyone who wants to do that. Specifically in Liquity, we tried to remove ourselves from the protocol since day one or even before we launched. And not only by relinquishing control of the protocol, but also via our communication. On the other side, we also work with legal teams and trying to comply with Swiss regulation, because the company is established in Switzerland, but also, of course, with mainly US and European regulations. So we don't want to do anything stupid. We don't want to go against regulation. But yeah, I mean, it's an attack factor. Even though Liquity cannot be stopped, well, it can be stopped if Chainlink decides not to serve the ETH price anymore, or if Ethereum mainnet gets taken down. But those two options are the only options to stop the protocol and to stop LUSD. Of course, we can get blacklisted or have a media campaign against us, etc., things that happened also to Tornado Cash. So that's a possibility. We try to minimize the chances of something like that happening. As mentioned earlier, I hope that regulators will act, reasonably, but time will tell.
You mentioned, and I guess I'm going to start to slowly resume, but you mentioned kind of price oracles. And price oracles, and ever since Sergey created, which respect, of course, but it's not exactly decentralized. What is, in your opinion, the next vision or the next step for decentralizing price oracles? Should it be a completely different design, or how do we proceed here with this part of the infrastructure in Web3?
Oh, technically, I'm really not the person to be asked about that, to be honest. It's a very hard problem, not only from the technical standpoint, but also from the point of Chainlink being so dominant. They are doing a good job. They are providing DeFi and wider with reliable price sources, but then they have, I think, multi-sig 4 of 9, which can crash and burn all of DeFi. It's very hard to tell how likely something like that would be. I know that there are several teams working on new Oracle solutions, but how likely or how good their solutions are, and if they can even gain adoption, because without that, they are dead. And very hard, if not impossible to say.
So I'm gonna move to the blitz kind of thing. It's 3 questions. You don't have to answer them in a blitz way. It's not, I would call it the blitz, but it's not like a blitz.
Okay.
3 projects outside of the obvious answers like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Chainlink, Liquity. And it doesn't have to be crypto, by the way, that technologically or in your case, it could be like a DeFi projects or anything in that way that arouse curiosity and you've lately been inspired by. And again, doesn't have to be crypto, can be crypto. Doesn't have to be tree.
Okay, so I personally use a like another Swiss project, which is actually an off-ramp on-ramp. It is called Mont Pelerin. So MT Pelerin. You can find it. It's an off-ramp which is non-custodial, and you can send your funds from your Web3 wallet to your bank account without any third parties involved. They are actually non-KYC up to 3K, I think. So that's my off-ramp of choice lately. They also integrated LUSD, so that's good. Then one project in the similar vein, which is about to launch this week or launch this week. What are we? End of March. It's called Holy Hell. This is non-custodial debit card. And you can again fund the debit card from your Web3 wallet, no third parties, no intermediaries involved. And then you can actually use the web wallet as any monolith or other non-KYC or KYC and non-custodial wallet, because you have all the Binance cards and Coinbase cards. You can use it, but on top of that, you have DeFi integrations, native DeFi integrations, also Liquity, also Yearn, also Alchemix. So put some ETH on your credit card and take out a loan against it and pay a drink with it or whatever. So that's really cool. Holy Hell. What else do I like?
Let me think. It doesn't have to be like tree specifically. There's great answers, but of course, feel free to add if you want to add.
Yeah, I think very cool products are just aggregators or apps which simplify things for people, like most recently Llama Swap by the DeFi Llama team, or which try to improve the user experience and user access. A wallet I like is Robbie by DBank or Frame, or the new Avocado by Instadept, though I haven't tried that yet. And also, a last answer, projects which build and expand on the protocol itself, like DeFi Saver, the position management app. Really cool app as well.
Frame, by the way, yeah, big shout out for creating that's, so far the only probably wallet for me, but not the only one I use, of course. But anyways, good job the guys did. Give me 2 motivational things that inspire you in your daily life to keep on working on Liquity and the Web3 and everything else.
My main motivation is my family, my kids, my wife. That's number one, and far and above everything else. The other thing is, might sound cliche, but I really think that DeFi can improve the life of people around the globe, especially in countries which are more repressive, which have bigger inflation issues than we do here. Just kind of trying to build in line with the ethos of CryptoPunks as close as we try or can get, and just improve the lives of people pretty much, yeah.
Nice. Last one person or personage or character, dead or alive, coder, writer, poet, blockchain engineer, doesn't matter, made up or cartoon character that inspires you, right?
So over the years from high school and even before and above, I liked all kinds of people, but I was never really idolizing person. But I would like to give a shout out to and bring attention to Alex Petrushev, the guy behind Cash, and kind of bring attention to his case. I'm not fully up to date on the situation right now, but I hope everything works out well for him, because writing code is not an offense, it's not a crime. That's what I wanted to say.
And hopefully this attention will go further. I'm not saying I personally actually know Alex, but hopefully this goes further to Ross and everybody else that is
what's happening.
I don't know the personal case. I know personally the person from some years ago back in Kaliningrad and the days of like 2016, 17, but I don't know what's happening personally to the case now, unfortunately.
Okay.
Hopefully, though, Alex and, Ross and everybody else who is currently Virgil, right? There's a lot of other people out there who,
Yeah, Ross as well.
yeah,
Snowden.
it's not a lot of people there who should not be where they are. I guess on that positive note, but in all honesty, this is what we face, right? So this is the reality.
Yeah, and shout out to a few people who are trying to push regulation in the right direction, like Jesse Powell from Kraken, or Eric Voorhees and others. Just wanted to mention that as well.
Definitely. Bojan, thank you very, 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 very much for your time. Thank you for answering all the questions. Hopefully, going to see Liquity expand its reach into the interchain and beyond, not just, in my opinion, Ethereum, but there are many, many other protocols out there that I would love to see Liquity expand to. And hopefully the infrastructure in the future will allow for that to happen. So thank you again for your time.
Definitely. I personally was a big user of Cosmos a while back, so I do know the ecosystem to some degree at least, and I like it a lot. I like what it stands for. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was lots of fun to talk to you, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, and thank you everybody who tuned in. Thanks. This content was created by the Citizen Cosmos Validator. If you enjoyed it, please support us by delegating to Citizen Cosmos and help us to create more educational content.